Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Sherry Mosey, and the president here at IP Consulting. I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's webinar, where we're going to go over some key elements and a roadmap to a secure network. We've got a slide presentation that we'll be displaying here in a minute. Alex is going to bring it up. There we go. And as you'll see on our next slide, just a little bit of an overview about IP Consulting and what we do. Since 2006, IP Consulting has been dedicated to providing effective, budget-friendly IT solutions to organizations. We take pride in serving our clients with cutting-edge technology and exceptional service. Next up, you'll see our agenda. As you'll see with this agenda, we're going to just give you an overview into strategies to secure your critical infrastructure within your business network. Our discussion will cover proactive measures, real-world vulnerabilities, and best practices to protect your IT systems. It's my pleasure today to introduce our speaker, Alex Boyce. Alex brings a wealth of expertise in cybersecurity. He'll be taking some questions throughout the presentation and again at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the comment section. We'll be pausing and then, of course, giving some time when we wrap up. With that, Alex, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Sherry. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining this afternoon. Getting some feedback. Give me a second. All right, sorry about that. So this afternoon we're going to be talking about a high-level overview on security infrastructure and assisting in just kind of guiding a high-level overview of how we go about securing networks and completing network reviews and securing all of our data. So really quick, if we want to just go through this, for those of you that are in IT, obviously you know what information technology is. IT focuses on supporting businesses and administrative functions, and then it's essential for managing data, going through and managing your business and enterprise systems. In addition, some organizations are going to have OT that's going to be within manufacturing and machining, critical infrastructure like municipalities, where you have maybe a power grid, power generation, power distribution, or water distribution. That can cause, or that would be what OT is. So OT supports machines and devices and automations and operational oversights, and it's key for controlling and monitoring industrial processes. In comparison, IT is vital for business and administrative operations, while OT is more crucial for the actual operations of the administrative functions. So in IT, our main security challenges are going to be around data availability and user actions. So obviously, availability, we want to make sure our users can access the data on the IT network. That's the benefit of an IT network. And then also user action, a concern because users tend to make mistakes, click on things they shouldn't, download things, go to inappropriate websites, those types of things. We also have to worry about internet accessibility. Once again, users clicking on links, downloading files, email and file sharing, phishing emails, data exfiltration. It could be either an internal threat or an external threat. Obviously, we have to worry about ransomware. That's been in the news a lot the last couple of years. So make sure that all of our data doesn't get locked. And we also have the personal and financial data security. So that's the finance team. That's individual. We have, they're logging into their bank at work or storing data that might be sensitive. We got to make sure that we have that locked down as well. So the way we do that was three concepts we want to talk through to complete those would be defense in depth. We missed a slide actually. Yep, there we go. So OT, for those of you with OT networks, really the primary concern there is the outdated and unpatched devices. Most OT networks are going to have older equipment that's been installed for several years, sometimes decades. We also might have lower risk awareness. A lot of times that's gear that's been retrofitted to be put on the network for automation. So the users may not be as aware that it has been added or it's been implemented or the security concerns around it. There might be limited controls available to those older device fitted systems. And then we also have industrial controls that would be primarily on your power networks or your water distribution for your municipalities. Those are high value targets. So obviously we have a big concern there for defending them against those higher level attackers. Now we can talk about cybersecurity. There's three we want to focus on today. The first would be defense in depth. That's multiple layers between you and the bad guys, so that they have to go through multiple systems to get access to critical data. We have the principle of least privilege, that is giving users only the access that is needed to complete their role. Same idea as when we hand out physical keys to the building. We don't give every employee a key to every door in the building. They only get what they need from where they need to work within. We also have zero trust network architecture. That's just that's a newer concept, but it's ensuring that whenever we authenticate or trust a user, we go through multiple step verification, and then we also are revalidating that regularly to make sure that we know that, okay, for now that user is who they are. We're still not going to trust them long term. We're going to revalidate, check, and make sure that that user is who they say they are. So we wanted to go into it and break this down. So we have some diagrams here to kind of talk through different components of a cybersecurity castle, is what we call it. So getting into that, this is the castle diagram that we have. Just to make sure we're all talking the same language, we have outside the walls there a moat. Then we have the gate that lets everyone into the castle grounds, a drawbridge that spans over the moat. We obviously have the walls right behind the moat. The castle grounds would be the area right inside the walls, and then we have the keep. That'd be the building, like the main area where the lord or whoever within the castle stay. So as we transition to talk about this analogy, what's outside our castle as we're talking about it from a cybersecurity perspective? Really, it's the internet, obviously. So the internet obviously has a lot of different things within it. Cloud services, email, remote users, those are all things that we want, generally need our IT infrastructure to be able to access. And then we have, obviously, who we don't want, which would be threat actors. And that can really range talent or ability all the way from a simple scam like calling and pretending to be a prince, get someone to send you money, some insurance on your car you don't need, that type of thing, all the way up to a full like nation state attacker or a talented cyber criminal, which obviously those attacks are very different. So once we move inside the castle grounds, once again, that's between the outer wall and the keep. That's really where we're going to have our primary IT functions. So business administrative functions, users and computers, file shares, applications, workstations, etc. We have our IT infrastructure and server backups, as well as our line of business. Once we move into the keep, if we have OT, that's generally where we're going to see OT live. So once again, that's your, if you're power distribution, you might have your meters. If you're manufacturing, you might have some PLCs and other tools that are in there to help you automate that. For non-OT companies, you may still have a need for that more secured area within your network. If you have any like PCI compliance, HIPAA compliance that you need to comply with, you can think of that area as your keep on your network. So how do we protect the castle grounds? So once again, this is outside the keep, just inside the walls. That first one is going to be the moat. Obviously, when you're guarding a castle, the goal of the moat was to prevent people from just bringing a ladder and getting right over the wall. that's really the goal here too, is to keep them off the wall. Well, in a cybersecurity standpoint, the way we do that is through email security, user training, and web access filtering. So email filtering, making sure that we don't get as many phishing emails coming in, blocking everything we can, user training, those emails that may slip past our phishing filter, sure that the users know how to know if an email is a phish attack, and then also web access. Ultimately, if those top two fail, I do click on that link in that email example. Hopefully, it's blocked by our web access filtering that's in place. And we have the drawbridge. The drawbridge, you might hear IT folks talk about the DMZ. The DMZ is kind of what the drawbridge is. That's where we're going to do all of our remote user authentication with multi-factor. We're also replace any public-facing server like a web server or an SQL server or anything else that might be sitting out there that's accessible from the internet. We want to put it out at the drawbridge side, so we're outside the castle walls, and we don't fight them all the way in whenever they make those public requests. Next, we have the gate. The gate's really the firewall. There's a few things, obviously, within the firewalls and various models will what features you get with that, but really it's your firewall rules, your policy logging, ability to geofence. So firewall rules, blocking traffic based on the where it's coming from, where it's going, and being able to filter traffic like that. Policy logging, knowing when traffic is flowing, evaluating as firewall rules get hit, and then geofencing, being able to just largely block off other countries or areas based on where the traffic is coming from. Can be a way to filter down that traffic even further, although it's not. Obviously, there are ways around that. Walls, that's really where your intrusion prevention system. A lot of times, IPS nowadays comes built within your firewall. However, there are some that you may still have a firewall, or I guess it's not in your firewall. That's where this would come in. Server hardening, and then your endpoint protection and response. So intrusion prevention systems, that's a system that will evaluate network traffic and block if it's a certain profile that looks like an attack is happening based on previous attacks. Server hardening obviously is going through and making sure that our servers are as secure as possible. And then endpoint detection response, that's your AV, or your antivirus, anti-malware systems on the computers. Make sure that those are catching anything that leaks through. As we move into the keep, that's really there's the door, which is a segmentation firewall. It also may have access restrictions and authentication for separation. So in the event you have an OT network, you may have need for a segmentation firewall. That could either be a segmented area on your main firewall, or in some cases, like with power distribution, water SCADAs, you may want to have a whole separate firewall segmenting that off so you can have physical separation between those two networks. You can provide some additional restrictions there. In the event, there's also other needs that you may have, like if you're a police department, you have criminal justice information, you may need to segment that off as well. Obviously, that comes with access restrictions, so making sure that you can't flow directly from the IT network without some kind of authentication, which means you probably need some authentication source, whether that's another Active Directory domain inside your OT network, or maybe it's some simple authentication that can take place on individual server internally, but you don't want to necessarily trust your authentication sources outside the keep, inside the keep, because they may become compromised and then allow access. Walls, that's your physical network separation, especially like I said on the OT network side. And then obviously endpoint hardening you can do in that area would also go to the walls. Castles were not just the structures, they also were obviously staffed. You had to have guards, you had to have officers to protect the walls and protect the castle. In this case, our guards and personnel our guards are our users and personnel. Detection and response, managers detection and response. Everything that's going to be reporting back to you. Users should be reporting things that are odd to IT. or reporting whenever they may accidentally click on a link to IT so that we can evaluate as quickly as possible. Your EDR and MDR obviously also should be sending alerts, taking action needed, and reviewing all that data as it comes in to take action as quickly as possible to prevent malware from landing and spreading. The officers would be your IT staff, security operations center, and AI or machine learning. So obviously, as users report issues to IT staff, the IT staff would hopefully go out and take care of those for them, report them up the chain, make sure that whoever is in charge of your security on campus is reviewing that information. Security operations center is probably going to be the ones reviewing your EDR and MDR logs, making sure that is escalated and or needs review gets reviewed for actions, so we can take action as quickly as possible. You can also leverage AI for that or machine learning for that. There are several offerings out now that do leverage those newer models, continue to improve to be able to take that action more quickly. With anything, obviously, we have maintenance. It's always a big thing within IT. So we have masons to maintain the walls. So that's patching your servers, making sure your antivirus, MDR get updated, and application patching. So it's not just patching your Windows operating system or your firewall. It's also making sure that the applications installed on there are getting patched as well, because those can also introduce vulnerabilities. We also have carpenters. That's your drawbridging. That'd be your infrastructure patching. So your firewall, switches, access points, any IT network infrastructure that may need patching. That'd be where it is done. You also have policy updates and cleanup. That'd be on probably your AD, making sure that we have good GPOs and that everything is being applied appropriately. Inspectors, so that's your remote monitoring management, device health monitoring, and pen testing. So obviously you want to make sure your RMM tools are up to date. That's remote monitoring and management, that they are reporting back to you on current patch cycle and any issues that they see on. That can also go into device health monitoring. RMM doesn't always support monitoring network devices or network infrastructure devices, or your virtualization hosts, switches, firewalls. You may have to use an MP monitor. You want to make sure that we have those covered and we're getting alerts as needed. And then finally, you also want to make sure we're doing testing with a penetration test and an external tester trying to get through the front gate or through the walls. And also every year inviting in for a red team test so that we can invite someone inside the castle walls and they can actually try to attack us from within. Our finals, the next set of slides is really around risk tolerance. As we look at this, we have to find an acceptable amount of security. We can always do things like, if you look here, we added a wall to make them run further around the castle. Then we add another wall in front of the keep so that blocks the door, so they have to continue to run. We can keep adding different security measures inside the castle walls, but at some point it makes the IT usability much lower. So we need to add security as much security as we can, but we don't want to cause too many inefficiencies for users and operations, because at some point the balance is going to flip, and it's not going to be worthwhile anymore. Because now, you have great security, but your users can't work. They can't do anything within the environment. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that we have appropriate risk tolerance? And really, our recommendation here would be to find a proper cybersecurity framework. You could think of these as blueprints for your cybersecurity castle, system reviewing security health and status. A few companies that we'd recommend you take a look at, obviously NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. They have both their CSF, and then if you have your DoD contractor or subcontractor, you may have 800, 171, or CMMC. Those are out there as well. For power companies or you have NERC. There's also other specialties for trades. So you may have PCI compliance, HIPAA that may be out there. And then there's also some compliance and different standards you can for internet security. Ultimately, what we're find one that fits your business well, and then try to work towards that as a team. And the purpose is so that you go, okay, we're going to go out, we're going to try to be NIST CSF compliant. Well, now we can start writing policies. We can start mapping all of our movements towards that goal, and it can really help to at least have a goal line for what you want your network security to look like. And those frameworks really help in completing your cybersecurity deployment. Along with those, obviously, you'll have to do regular audits and self-assessments. Obviously, if you don't have any need to be frameworks, you wouldn't have a third-party audit. Unlikely, would assessments, but you'd want to make sure that we're doing those regularly, doing them in as truthfully as you can. Make sure you're holding us so that you get as much benefit from those frameworks as possible. With any framework, you're going to have security policy, so network security policy or system security plan. That's really going to govern how your security is implemented and policed on the network. It's going to be critical for maintaining system security. So it's going to mandate how not only your users, but also any external customers may deploy software on your network, how your IT will have to deploy your firewall, your switch, different systems that are required, different tools that are allowed. Basically, everything that goes into your security should be enforced with policy so that it's applicable to everyone. So that if staff changes, if IT managers are replaced, they still have to comply with what we set out, what we set up as the goal during our cybersecurity audits. So next steps and recommendations to work towards these goals is obviously start construction on your castle. You want to survey the landscape, so a security and network assessment, discover your current security standard. Do you have a wall and you have a hole in the west wall? Is your gate falling apart? What does your look like? You want to evaluate those gaps and assess the threats and to your organization. Obviously, rack and stack all of those and create a list of priorities for triage. Resolve issues based on security risk. And obviously, also it helps if it's a high risk, cheap and quick solution to implement. Those are great. They're also kind of unicorns. You don't see those very often. So you'd have to create that rack and stack list to be able to determine exactly how you want to handle your security. As far as recommendations, once again, try to find the best cybersecurity framework for your organization. If you want to discuss that, we deal with that quite a bit. Reach out, let us know. We're more than happy to take the call and definitely discuss that with you. Implement layers of security. So you have your IT, and then you have OT. Once again, you have OT, but you may also have other segmented networks behind the IT with the firewall in between. And for critical infrastructure, we do recommend that you have IT and OT firewalls from different vendors. That way, if there's a vulnerability on your external firewall, at least you hopefully won't be there on your internal. Monitor your networks, MDR and SIEM with SOC services for 24/7 security support. The earlier an attack can be detected and stopped, the better. And then for critical infrastructure, no devices or cables should be shared between IT and OT networks. That's particularly on SCADA for power and water. You don't want to have any shared infrastructure. With that, I'm going to hand it back off to Sherry. Thank you all very much for your time today.
Thank you, Alex. One question did pop up that maybe I can ask you. Let me see here. We have heard about backup and ransomware and incident response preparedness. How does that fit into the
Yeah, Sherry, what's up?
Sorry, are you not hearing me?
Can you hear me, Sherry? I'm sorry. I'm having some audio issues still.
Gotcha. So the question was, we've heard about ransomware and incident response preparedness. How does that fit within the framework that you just went through?
Right. So obviously, ransomware and incident response preparedness. So the tools we have here are really determined to prevent ransomware more than anything. It's not necessarily as a response to ransomware, if that was your question. So whenever you're talking about incident response with ransomware, generally ransomware happens, you're looking and hoping that you have offsite backups or backups didn't get hit. Um, so the goal of what we're talking about here is having pieces in place so that in the event you have ransomware, you have ER and your SOC take action right away to lock that computer down. That's you know um, being taken over and start encryption on maybe either its own storage or on shared storage on the network. Hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you, Alex. I don't see any other questions in the queue. Let me just double check here. Well, for those of you who have attended, thank you for your time and attention. As you can tell, there are a number of considerations when formulating a security policy. And as Alex, I think, went through very articulately, um, sometimes we can over architect certain elements of the posture and under architect others. So, what we really strive to do is provide our clients with a roadmap. We take a full stock of where you're at, where your vulnerabilities are, and we create some customized solutions to help you protect the things that are most important in your organization to protect. No two organizations are the same, so we really do customize those assessments and security measures. So, with that, love to hear any feedback from those of you who've attended. If you have any follow up questions, comments, suggestions for future webinars, we'd love to hear it. And if you're ready to get started with an assessment, please reach out to us, sales@ipconsultinginc.com. Our phone number is there for your view as well, 616-828-4416. Thank you, everyone.